Hello and welcome to GV Face, the Global Voices Hangout series. This week we're going to be talking about silencing Balochistan in Pakistan. We're joined by a veteran advocate, Mir Mohammad Talpur from Hyderabad, and Fahad Deshmukh, who runs Pak Voices. He's based in Islamabad right now. Ali Arkam, who joins us from Karachi. He's also an activist and a journalist, currently with Newsline magazine. And Adnan Amir, who runs Balochistan Point, an independent online magazine that reports on social and cultural issues of Balochistan. Last week, a leading university in Pakistan, LUMS, was forced to cancel an academic conversation on human rights issues in Balochistan. This led to a vicious media campaign against the university, because Balochistan, or human rights issues in Balochistan, is a completely taboo topic in Pakistani discourse. Public conversations on Balochistan are rare. Media rarely talks about it, especially human rights abuses. Balochistan is Pakistan's largest but poorest province. So reporting there is rare because of security issues. Independence movements have been brewing and cooling there for decades. It's currently going through its 5th separatist movement. And there is a brutal campaign to suppress independent voices. Over the last few years, dozens of bodies have been found bearing torture marks, and the families of these victims say that their loved ones were abducted by security forces in Pakistan before they went missing. So missing people in Balochistan is a big issue, and this is one of the things that was supposed to come up in the LUMS conversation. So we're joined by Mir Talpur here, who was invited to this discussion at LUMS. And I want to ask you, Talpur Sahib, you've been talking about Balochistan issues, human rights abuses there for a while now. Were you surprised when this academic conversation was cancelled?
Well, when I was in Lahore some few days before this conference was to take place. I had been invited by the ICJ for some consultation for that UPR, Universal Periodic Review, and I had met Dr. Christine over there. She was the person behind all that. She was inviting everybody, and I met her. And I had asked her if she had been troubled or worried by different agencies, because sometime before that she had had a roundtable on the Ahmadis, and I was really surprised that nobody had said anything to her. But when this came about, I wasn't really surprised. I was surprised that if they had allowed it to go ahead, I would have been surprised, because it is since a long time. I've been writing about Balochistan. That's the topic I mostly deal with, and not mostly. 99% of the time I write about that. And I was given a friend, and I was writing in Daily Times, and I was advised that I should no longer write about Balochistan by the management, by those running the newspaper. So I was asked not to write about it. Then I felt I couldn't write about the weather, so I stopped writing for Daily Time. So I wasn't surprised, because in March, on 4th March, Mama was leaving, Mama Farzana Majid and another Baloch lady, they were leaving for New York. And the Sindhi Academic Council over there in New York had invited them for a human rights conference in New York. And they were given a visa by US, and they were at the airport. The luggage was loaded onto the plane, but then they were told that your name is on the ECL list and you can't go, and they were harassed and they were intimidated. And so I was quite surprised that they had allowed all to go up till there. Everything related to Balochistan, as all my friends sitting here know, that is stopped, it's taboo, it's anathema for the establishment, and sadly for the media as well. The media too doesn't try to deal with this issue. Only, I suppose, sometimes dawns now. A few times, Nation has written about it, but otherwise there isn't much dabbling with Baloch issues.
So just to clarify, you mentioned two activists, Farzana, who's with International Voices of Missing Baloch People, and Mama Kadir, who was heading the unprecedented march across Pakistan to raise awareness about the issues of missing people. Both of them have family members who've been missing for a few years. There's also a case in the Supreme Court relating to missing Balochistan people, which I think in that context sometimes it has come up in media. A few mainstream journalists have tried to raise the issue of Balochistan. Hamid Mir, his case is famous. Last year he joined the march with Mama Kadir, and a few months afterwards he was shot in broad daylight on his way to work in Karachi. There was an impending scandal where his brother accused the security forces of arranging the attack against him because of his raising his voice against Balochistan. He has since been mostly quiet on media, but he does speak, I believe, at some press clubs and other spaces about Balochistan. So Fahad and Adnan, this brings me to you two. Both of you cover Balochistan. Adnan runs Balochistan Point, a vibrant online magazine on Balochistan. But what kind of topics do you cover, Adnan, and what kind of stories do you think are important to raise from Balochistan that haven't entered the imagination of Pakistan, even though it is its largest province and most resource-rich, but poorest?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to speak at the session.
Could you possibly speak up, Adnan?
Okay. Now, can you hear me properly?
A little louder. A little louder. Okay, great.
Okay, that's fine. Now, our online newspaper, the Balochistan Point, is the only English language online newspaper that is being operated from Balochistan only. So, we have been in operations for last 4 years. It has been in operation for last 4 years. And so far, we have been lucky that it has not been banned by PTA. And the reason for this is that we avoid security-related matters. We do not write about anything that is related to like military operations going in Balochistan or missing persons or anything like that. That's the only reason that we have been allowed to operate. Now, what we do when we cover the social issues of Balochistan mainly, issues related to health, related to education, related to culture, like non-security issues mainly. And there are security issues, missing persons. These are like one of the most important issues of Balochistan. But other than that, there are also other issues which are not reported on the mainstream media of Pakistan. Like I would like to give you the example of the recent local bodies elections that took place in Balochistan, that last year. Now, though Balochistan is the first province of Pakistan that conducted local body polls in this session, and the Balochistan government is praised for doing that. But what people don't know is that these elections lingered on for 14 months, and the ruling parties pulled every string and left no stone unturned to get their people elected. So, like, this is the one issue, local bodies, that is not reported. Same is the case with educational emergency. As you might know that Balochistan government has imposed an educational emergency in the province at the moment, and they are advertising it. They are paying for television advertisements, and like most people in Pakistan might think that this government is doing something for education, but that's not the reality. There are like a lot of issues, a lot of problems with education in Balochistan, and we at Balochistan Point try to cover them, try to raise the voice of those people who just having problems with that, or like what Balochistan government has failed to do so. Same is the case with health sector, like what government has failed to do there. So that's what we do. We just stick to non-security related matters, because if we do not, then there's a greater probability that our website will end up on the banned
Block
list
list.
of Pakistan Information Authority.
Like another website, Balochistan Hal, which was the first online magazine coming from Balochistan. It was banned fairly early on, I think 2 years into operation, because it did dare to report on security issues, and recently the founder had to take the website offline. So, I mean, there's a larger problem here, Fahad, that we see yes, there are all these issues in Balochistan, but there's a problem in Pakistan where there's not an audience for these issues. It's our largest province, it's the poorest one, it's in need of dire attention. And Adnan talks about these two issues that I believe that Pak Voices has reported on recently, local body elections and also the education crisis. You launched Pak Voices a couple of months ago. What do you see, how do you see being able to gain traction in the imagination of a Pakistani online audience about issues in Balochistan? What are your challenges?
Yeah, so, yes, Sahar, I mean, you're right. We started Pak Voices a few months ago, and we're still really in our initial stages getting traction. But maybe if I can comment based on sort of my experience as a journalist for the past 5 or 6 years, and I think, and being in Karachi, you know, I mean, Adnan gave some great information about reporting from within Balochistan and Quetta. But even in Karachi, it's very difficult. And there are a number of reasons for it. One is a security situation, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail later. But there's also the issue of, as you mentioned, just a market for it. I mean, why is it that Balochistan doesn't get covered in the way that it should in the rest of the country? And part of it is because of, you know, the lack of a market. I mean, we've got big cities or the mainstream media, which is entirely focused on Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and so the advertisers aren't really that interested in getting stories from Balochistan. And at the same time, it's expensive for mainstream media outlets to send out to send out journalists and send out reporting teams to Balochistan every time there's an issue. And so that's sort of the economics behind it. And I can tell you, other than that, just the security issue makes it very difficult as well to report, even from Karachi. 5 or 6 years ago, when I was trying to report on issues related to Balochistan from Karachi, even though the situation wasn't particularly safe, many activists, Baloch activists, were willing to come and meet with me in person and have long discussions. And I found over the years, slowly, the number of those people who are willing to come and speak out, speak openly, has been decreasing. Certainly, that's the case with with people in Karachi who will say, "Oh, can we just sort of have a discussion over email, or can we just sort of talk over Skype rather than meet in person?" And that again makes it more difficult for journalists to sort of put together a proper story, which is engaging and interesting for audiences. And that's sort of in a way that the security agencies have succeeded in their goal of preventing coverage, not just by blocking things out in the sort of crude manner that they did with the Lums event, but by making it more expensive and more difficult in more subtle ways for what's going on in Balochistan to be reported. Yeah, I mean, we at Pak Voices are hoping we can sort of find other ways to create a local market for local news. So not just security, but as Adnan was discussing, things like governance issues, local elections, local news which doesn't get any coverage sort of anywhere in the mainstream media, and there aren't many outlets on the local platform. So yeah, but I think the future isn't very optimistic. I think there's really not that much space to maneuver.
And it's unfortunate when Balochistan does end up coming in the national headlines. It's always from a standpoint of tragedy. Just a little a background story on Pakistan. It's a very large country. It's the 6th most populous country in the world, almost 200 million population. Balochistan's population, we really don't know how much it is. According to the last census, which was done some 15, 20 years ago, it was only 5 million. Now some estimates say it's around 15 million, and Pakistan's largest city, Karachi, the population is around 20 million. So area-wise, the Balochistan is massive. But I think because of the fact that the population there is relatively poor, it's sparsely populated, that also ends up affecting market dynamics. But there's this larger problem, right, Ali, that you have faced being a social media activist trying to raise awareness on Balochistan, where the conversation on Balochistan is incredibly polarized online. So when a tragedy does happen in Balochistan, I feel like as soon as the tragedy happens, before I even know about the tragedy itself, I get tagged on Twitter by 5 or 6 people accusing me of not tweeting about it. You know, just I like to think that I myself, as a Pakistani Twitter user, try to pay attention to news deserts more than anything else, which I think Balochistan is Pakistan's largest news desert. We don't know what's happening there. Reporting is sparse, but at the same time, it's difficult to get people's attention there. So, what has your experience been trying to navigate that space on social media? Ali?
Yeah, when it comes to reporting on Balochistan, the mainstream media is a part. We can see that mainstream media doesn't report any incidents of violence there, or the issue of Baloch missing persons or bullet bodies found in various parts of Balochistan. But at social media, thanks to a good presence of even Baloch activists on the social media who have raised the cause of Balochistan on every occasion, when we can see from the Long March by Voice for Baloch Missing Persons, the whole Long March has little to no attention on the social media. Sorry, on the mainstream media, but social media has raised the whole issue of the Long March. It has reported with pics and videos and different ways of reporting from Quetta till Islamabad. And when it came to Karachi, I joined it, and I have seen them the way they were reporting each and every moment of this Long March. But I think it's the social media which has kept the issue of Balochistan alive in our eyes, and most of greater part is played by the Baloch activists, because even our journalists, our social media activists too have very little attention to the issues of Balochistan.
Okay, Talpur Saab, I'd like to go back to you, and you had this really powerful statement. So I'm just gonna. Could you unmute yourself? I can't do that, but you had this really powerful statement that so you know, your talk at LUMS in the roundtable format couldn't happen, but it was arranged in an informal classroom, and then you spoke in Islamabad also at 2 other civic media spaces, civil society spaces about Balochistan, and you had this really powerful thing where you said that dead bodies have been found in Balochistan with Pakistan Zindabad, meaning Pakistan forever, carved in them. What was the reaction from the audiences when they heard stuff like that? Students in LUMS or audience members in Islamabad, were they shocked?
I think they are shocked. There was a person who, while I was talking to the students at LUMS, informally I had gone there. The students had asked me to come and talk to them. I was talking, and I don't know, I think he was teaching over there. He said that what I'm telling them, all these things, to these students who have so much stake in Pakistan and its existence, and you are telling them all these things, and I think some were taken aback naturally. But I said that I understand that all the truth that is present before the people, it is pessimistic makes them pessimistic. But this is the truth that is now. And I told them that it's not something I'm telling about something which I've heard from somebody. There are 25 people among the more than nearly 3,000 people who have been killed and dumped. 25 persons whom I knew personally have been killed and dumped. One was dumped last August. He was a married man, and with his family, that while we were in Machari, with Mama Kadir, I walked with them from Karachi to Saidabad. And when we were in Machari, we had stayed with those Mari people over there. They had arranged that one of them, Sahib Jan, he was killed. And there are a dozen who I know are missing. So it does create pessimism as well. But I think this is a narrative that people should know about. Without knowing this, there can be no hope of anybody knowing what is happening there or sympathizing with the Baloch people. While we were on the long march, I was again with Mama Kadir from Jhelum to Islamabad. Wherever anybody who would dare to put us up for the night, he was harassed by all the agencies, the ISI, the MI, the IB, FI, everybody would come to the house and ask them, how do you know them? Why are you putting them up for the night? So it's something that, without resisting it, now when this Lams ban had taken place, a friend of mine arranged these two functions, one at Kuch Khas and the STPI. The Lams people there called me themselves. And many people advised, friendly advice and other advice, they said that don't give it up. Because the Lams has been banned, the situation is not good. The well-wisher said that please don't go. We agreed, my friend Roshan Khatak and I agreed that if we back out, then there will never be any chance for us to come up again with something like this. So we went ahead with it. Understandably, it's not risk-free for anybody. Anybody who talks about Balochistan or mentions Balochistan or is working for human rights in Balochistan, they're always under threat. And there was one thing that you said, that Balochistan is a large piece. It's usually called the 44% of Pakistan, but nobody really knows that it wasn't by will that it became the 44%. It was the fourth merger on 27th March 1948 that Khan Kalat was forced to sign the instrument of accession to Pakistan. And since then, that is 27th March, which is now observed by all Baloch, that is the Baloch who do not want to serve Pakistan, observe it as a black day. And since then, that is since 27th March 1948, there has been ups and downs in the struggle, definitely, but it hasn't died down. People are struggling, people are fighting for it. And at this present, the present struggle, which started since 2000 when Nawab Khairbakhsh Mari was arrested on false charges, and then Akbar Bugti was killed in 2006. Then, since then, this struggle has been at a very wide scale, a huge involvement of people. Otherwise, it's a fish and the sea. Without the sea, the fish cannot survive. If people couldn't have survived. And this recently, there was a formal announcement from General Rahil that this Baloch insurgency would be crushed, and they have always said that. While in 1972, I was in the Mari area then, and that Tandoori incident had taken place on 18th May 1973, and the Pakistani army had moved into Mawan. And General Tika Khan had then said that they would get hold of the miscreants and finish this all off in 72 hours. That 72 hours hasn't ended yet. So there's been so many statements of crushing everything, but it's the people who are fighting. It's not somebody who they usually put up the blame that RAW is supporting them or Mossad is supporting them. I always quote that when Mehrab Khan fought in 1839, or when the Maris fought the British in 1840 at Sataf and Nafalsk and many other places then, there weren't any Indian consulates in Kandahar, or there wasn't any Mossad or RAW then. It's the people who have been fighting. The people resent you. They have a different ethos. So, but sadly, this narrative it doesn't get across, and this is the narrative that the state doesn't want the people to listen to or to hear. But we went ahead, and I talked at Kuch Khas at HDPI and informally to the students of Lam, and this is the narrative that I put across, that it's not something external. It's the indigenous thing which is going on in Balochistan today.
Fahad, I guess that brings me back to you. What should we do? People like you and me, who are journalists and activists, who've been watching this latest insurgency, which officially we can say kicked off in 2006 when Nawab Akbar Bukti was killed. And this is, I believe, this separatist movement is its most decentralized one that Balochistan has ever had. It's pretty active in the coastal regions as well. It's been 9 years, and the government, you know, I mean, well, not the government. We can say this is a security state essentially in Balochistan, but we don't use these words when we're covering the area. The province, some areas of the province have been given de facto control to the rangers under the guise of the military, but we don't report about it. We don't talk about it. How can we change the conversation, the narrative, in a larger context, in terms of social media? How can we inform global audiences about what's going on in Balochistan, given that the attention on Pakistan is always from a perspective of what's happening in the northwest with the Taliban, or in relation to the war in Afghanistan, and within the national context, all in terms of politics and power dynamics within the country? How can we shift focus back onto this issue?
Yeah, Sahar, I'm really not sure what the answer is to that, about how we can shift the focus or bring more attention, other than sort of just reporting more about what's going on, trying to tell better stories, more engaging stories. But the problem is an imbalanced battlefield in which, you know, regular people, regular journalists, activists have to fight against not other activists, but against essentially a state with all of its machinery. But I think increasingly it seems as though, you know, people are beginning to sort of get an idea of what's going on, and people are going to have to change sides. I think this is a historical, or this is going to be an issue in which, you know, people have to pick sides in the way that there's no other outcome that can come other than some kind of, you know, justice and self-determination for the people of Balochistan, as is the case with Palestine, as was the case for Africans in the United States, as is the case with Ireland, and of course with Kashmir and all of these conflicts, including Balochistan. There can be no other outcome than self-determination for the people, you know, and whether it's being part of Pakistan or whether it's independence. But and I think this is something that, you know, people in Pakistan especially have to make that decision before it's, you know, too late, and, you know, and much worse things happen, as happened in East Pakistan and what is now Bangladesh. I want to get to this question of why is it that, you know, the slums event was cancelled? Why is it that what's going on in Balochistan is being hidden in Pakistan? There's a lot of oppression in Pakistan generally, not just with the Baloch, but there are many other communities which have been oppressed. There's the Ahmadis, there's Shias, and, you know, religious minorities. There are other ethnic minorities which have been oppressed. But what's unique about the Baloch movement is that here is a community that is resisting in a way that few other communities are resisting, whether it's, you know, religious minorities, gender minorities, anyone. But the Baloch have resisted unlike any others. And in the mainstream Baloch discourse, as far as I understand, this idea of resistance is not something which is controversial. The discussion of independence is not something that is controversial. It's something which is debated and argued, certainly. But it's, you know, a few years ago I did a story about revolutionary music, but revolutionary Baloch music. There's a whole genre of Baloch music which is dedicated to this idea of revolution, of independence, of rights and autonomy. And when I was speaking to one of the music producers of one of these production houses, he himself was a Pashtun, he told me that in every Baloch music album, there's got to be one or two songs which are about independence and which are about resistance. and he described it as though this is, it's like a sunnat ki namaz. If for those who don't understand Urdu, it's sort of like a it's almost like an additional prayer that it's not complete without having even if the whole album is about maybe romantic music, it's just. And so I think this this unique characteristic about a movement which is in resistance, which has sort of said in this very sort of Malcolm X manner that we'll get our rights by any means possible. This is what the establishment is so scared of something like this spreading to other areas, and it's already begun. In Sindh, there are ethnic nationalists over there who have been greatly inspired by the Baloch militants and said, oh, we're going to do the same things. We're going to blow up gas pipelines, or we're going to be radical in the same way that the Baloch have. I remember when I spoke several years ago to Baba Jan, who is an activist in Gilgit-Baltistan in the very north of the Pakistani-controlled territories, in which this was after he'd been released for the first time, and he joked about how when he was in prison, the prison wardens wanted to separate him from the Baloch prisoners, and he joked about it because they feared that he would learn how to make bombs from the Baloch prisoners, and something like this would spread to the very north of Pakistan, Gilgit-Baltistan. So I mean, this is what people want to hide. I think everyone knows about, or many people know about, the kind of oppression that's going on. But the resistance is something that maybe not everyone is aware of, and I think it's the security establishment wants to cover this up as much as it can, and not let this idea of resistance spread to other areas.
I think that's really powerful, Fahad. So I mean, we're running over, and I just wanted a few words from everyone. But this brings me to a very important question that I think that you have raised. What can we, Global Voices is a community of international activists. What can our community do to raise the issue of Balochistan and help take the narrative away from the official Pakistani narrative, which is that it's not a legitimate movement of resistance, it's foreign funded, and they don't have legitimate aspirations and desires for their province, the Baloch, and that they want, they also create this narrative of them being almost xenophobic, where no non-Baloch is allowed to live in Balochistan. Balochistan, especially Quetta, used to be one of the most diverse cities in Pakistan. It no longer is. There's been a lot of forced migration, mostly out of security concerns, but it's the narrative is built around they're threatened by these freedom fighters or separatists, depending on where you fall on this spectrum. So what can international activists do to change the narrative about Balochistan? Ali, I'd like you to answer that really briefly, and then maybe we'll go to Adnan. Maybe you can talk about something else about Balochistan. Stay away from security issues. But Ali, first you.
Yeah, I would like to add something as Fahad was saying. I think when we in Pakistan, when we are talking about the terrorism and the Pakistan military strategy, here comes terminology that is some types of paradigm shift. In my view, the paradigm shift is not about eliminating terrorism, but the paradigm shift is about a very ultra-nationalistic discourse which has been followed during these few months and during the last year. So the issue of Balochistan does not come in accordance with this ultra-nationalist view. The way we are seeing that they are bringing cybercrime laws, these things, and even the issue of military courts and these things, we can guess from this whole thing that they are going after Baloch activists. They are going after Baloch activists even on the internet or even on the social media. They have done to them in Balochistan when journalists were killed for highlighting the issue of Balochistan. So when they will do this more broadly in other parts of Pakistan as well. So that was I want to add to this whole thing.
Thank you, Ali. And Adnan? Sorry, Ji. Go ahead.
there's is about these killings, that xenophobic and people being attacked, the non-Baloch people being attacked. But this is something which never happened before. It wasn't something which has been with the Baloch forever. And it is since the killing of Nawab Akbar Bukti and the repression that has started since. I am on the court. I condemn all the killings that take place. I condemn them. I don't agree with the killing of people who are not military people. I've condemned such killings. But this happens in response to the huge atrocities that are committed against the Baloch. But this narrative is always forgotten, that this violence is in answer to the violence that the state commits. And it's always blaming the victims. It's not, sadly, the media plays a very sinister role in this. As Malcolm X once said, that the newspapers would have you believe, have you loving the oppressors rather than supporting the oppressed. They put it the whole picture in a way that people think that it's only the Baloch to blame. All the violence that the state and the state agencies and two other people as well. And it's not that other people are only involved. There are many Baloch who are in the death squads. There are death squads operating in Balochistan. For example, there were in a hearing at the Supreme Court, the IB, the Investigation Bureau, they admitted that from in 2008 and 2009, the IB, that is Investigation Bureau, spent 400 million rupees on counterinsurgency in Balochistan. This is a huge amount, and that's just IB spending. What other agencies spent is no, and it is from 2008 that those death squads have been operating, and those are religious sectarian death squads which kill the Hazaras as well. The Hazaras are overlooked. Only the media wakes up when Hazaras bus is bombed or their colonies are bombed. Otherwise, the plight of the Hazaras is also overlooked in the same way that the Baloch are overlooked. So what Global Voices and the other social media activists could do is, there's so much which goes on, which is unconfirmed on the internet, on the social media. There's so much that goes, but there are certain sources who always give a confirmed news about what is happening in Balochistan. At least that could be projected in the way it should be projected, and the voice or the Baloch humanitarian aspect, at least. It's not a bounden duty of Global Voices to support Baloch independence, but for anybody who is a social activist, is a human rights activist, should look at the humanitarian issue of the Baloch as well. Because this is, but again, it is the political issue which makes it a humanitarian issue. So it's the discretion of all social activists who would have to decide to what extent they would like to support the Baloch, and on what ground and what issue.
Thank you, Tausif Saab. Adnan, back to you.
Okay, what I would like to say is that platforms like Global Voices, they should treat Balochistan like an extraordinary situation. A news coming out from Balochistan should be given more importance than a news from other part of Pakistan. And secondly, as Lee just mentioned, that Pakistan, government of Pakistan is in the process of introducing a cyber crime bill. That is a very draconian bill, and that is aimed at suppressing mainly the voices in social media. So what I would like the platforms like Global Voices to do is to raise voice against this and bring this to the attention of the international world and put pressure on the government so that they are not allowed to suppress the voices of social activists like me, like Ali, like all those others who are highlighting Balochistan, the issues in Balochistan which are ignored in mainstream media. So this is what I would like to say.
Thank you, Adnan. Last word for you, Fahad.
Yeah, I think maybe just a short note. I think one of the biggest issues on reporting about trying to report on what's going on in Balochistan, one of the biggest issues is verified information. And I think maybe one of the things that maybe activists elsewhere could do is help people in Balochistan provide sort of the right kind of information that people, international agencies can then easily verify, sitting far away, and then run a story on it. I mean, there are countless times when I've gotten where news has been emailed to me or sent to me saying that this, and it's been difficult to verify sitting far away, and when people don't have the resources to go and visit. And I think it would be good to think of ways that we can help people like Adnan and other journalists who are based in Balochistan, I guess, to work with them to figure out what is the kind of evidence and information that they can provide, which can then be verifiable for people outside of the region, so that we can highlight these issues better.
I think that's an excellent point, Fahad. I think connecting more Baloch activists with tools like geotagging and information like that. Bellycat is an investigative site that has been doing a lot of work with citizen media videos produced in Syria. So maybe bringing some Baloch activists to their attention and the issue to their attention. Thank you everyone for joining Global Voices today and speaking about a topic which is controversial and taboo in Pakistan, and it was so great to be able to hear different voices from across the country about an issue that is rarely resonates across Pakistan. This conversation is going to be available on YouTube, which is banned in Pakistan, but it's also going to be available on our newly launched channel GB Radio in audio form this week. We'll be repeating it a few times. So do tune in, and this is the first conversation of many more I hope we will be having on Balochistan and reporting, and we'll be continuing to do our own coverage on Balochistan through Pak Voices and some of our correspondents. Thank you so much for joining us, Talpur Saab, Ali, Adnan from Quetta, and Fahad from Islamabad. Thank you.